right, welcome back to the Mega Meeple, the show all about gamers and the games that bring them together. I am Tom.
I'm Al. Thanks for downloading us. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to our show.
And if you haven't already, you can subscribe to us on iTunes. And while you're there, be sure to put out some of that 5-star loving and leave us a happy review. It really helps us out.
And we are on all the different social networks, even the ones you can't even think of. Instagram. What else is out there, Tom? We got all kinds of stuff.
We got Twitter. We got Facebook. We got.
We're also available, as Tom indicated, on a website. We're at the www.themegameeple.com. That's all one word, themegameeple.com. And you can find some of the information about what we do here on that site.
Very good. So, without any further ado, let's whip up some mac and cheese, grab a Mountain Dew. Let's get on with the episode. All right, welcome back to the Mega Meeple. And this is our first, first episode of 2018. Although I think our last episode of 2017 was released just maybe a few hours before less than the year, so it may have been uploaded to iTunes first thing January 1st. But this is the first one that we've actually recorded proper on the New Year. So, how you doing now? How was your New Year's?
Oh, the New Year's was pretty decent. We had fairly nice holidays. We're recording this on Saturday morning of the 6th, and it's just been super cold the whole week. So,
oh yes,
I know it's been worse up to the north and east, and even Charleston got 5.5, 6 inches of snow, which is that's crazy.
We're past few days. Everybody's run their faucets, keeping their faucets at night so the pipes don't freeze and stuff like that. So, and all people are posting. Even in spite of that, a few people have posted, at least on my friends list on Facebook, is like, yeah, guess you got busted pipes this morning, and guess who doesn't have hot water?
Yeah.
This episode, I think we're going to talk about something we've mentioned before quite a few times, just as we're talking about, our favorite games and games that we played or games on our list. And there's the whole aspect of board games that have apps. I don't know, there seems to be two, maybe even 3 camps. People would love it, people who hate it, and others that's and they just kind of, they're not crazy about it, but it's very situational. So, it seems like Fantasy Flight Games Mansions of Madness Second Edition is the crown jewel of how an app can be incorporated into a board game. But the question still kind of hangs out there: should apps even be a part of board games, or should that just fall into video games or board games that are ported out to apps? What do you think?
Well, I think an absolutist position is probably not the way to go, because I think different games are going to have different answers to the question. Now, for example, Mansions of Madness, as you brought up, I think that was a solution to a problem that the designer saw. Mm-hmm. In that the first version was very fiddly and would fail basically because people would misread instructions or misread the process to move forward and ruin the game. The game would actually become unplayable because you could potentially not win if you misinterpreted an instruction, etc. So, in that particular case, the design of the game almost from the first should have had some sort of intermediary device to handle the complexity, I guess, of the narrative, and also the fiddliness of the nature of the process. I mean, during the game, you're collecting a lot of materials that will potentially affect the process of the game. And again, if that's mishandled in any way, then you have a potential failure to the game. If you're able to roll it into the actual game development process, it's a win. No matter which way you look at it. And I think generally the population's kind of accepted that particular situation is specifically for that particular game.
Right.
I think people would be, how do I phrase this, sticking their head in the sand if they don't think that's the way things are going to move forward going forward. Especially if a game design is going to become fairly complex in its components or its narrative. I think that if designers want to move forward in that direction, and I think that they will, there's a kind of a schism, I think, in development towards either casual play or play that is similar to this, where there's significant complexity. The ones that are part of that complexity are going to lean in towards at least some portion of online interdiction. At least that's my opinion.
Yeah, I understand that. And in the case, like I said, in the case of Mansions of Madness, it was something that almost begged to be done. Either reprint the whole game again and just make some major changes to the mechanics or the dynamics of how these things play together, and I don't know, revamp the components or reduce down the amount of things you need to worry about as if you're going to be doing the GM aspect of it, or do like I did with the app. And I know a lot of people. I know people that have played the first. I never played the first edition. That was a little before my time, before I got into board games. But I've heard from people who've played the first edition. Definitely, it was very fiddly, and just one mistake, and you're a food bar.
You're out. And there was a significant time investment too. I mean, and that still exists with the current version. But on that first edition, because of the complexity, you're playing 2.5 hours, and all of a sudden you realize you can't win. That's not going to make for a happy group of people.
Yeah, definitely. And also just the aspect of they made it into a cooperative game, because anybody that has it usually falls on the shoulders of the person who owns the game to play that GM aspect of it if it's a one versus many. But the aspect of the app on second edition really helps with people who have once they own the game, they played it as the one person in the one versus many, but that was it. That they were pretty much pigeonholed into playing that part every time the game came out, and they never got a chance to play it as an investigator. So now with the app, it's like, okay, finally I get to play it as an investigator now.
Yeah, Descent had that same issue as well, and I'm not sure if the newest version has an official online aspect or not, but people were resolving some of the issues that Descent had by creating a online experience as well, so for the same reason, because the one person had to play the bad guy, the monster bad guy owns the castle, however you want to phrase it, and it usually wasn't as satisfying as an experience for that person as it was for the people who were trying to find their way through the dungeon.
Right. So, that's now. What about you think of apps that not, and these may or may not be like the official licensed app that was put out by the game designer or publisher, but things like apps that are not integral in the part. You don't need them, but they're more of like an assist. Like the one I always use is when I play Scythe, I always use the Sidekick app, and that just helps primarily with keeping score and making sure because I don't do math, So just being able to, just click in what level of popularity you're at, and how many resources you have, or how many hexes you control, and it just tallies that up, automatically, and spits out who the winner is.
There's a couple of games that are enhanced, in my opinion. Scythe is one of them, by having that scoring assistant going on during the game, and or at the end, but especially going on during the game. But there are scorers out there that I think provide not complex, but indirect scoring capability. So there are games like Seven Wonders where you're not exactly sure where you stand in regards to the scoring because of for example, science being based on cards you can be getting late in the game. So you don't even know exactly where you stand or where your opponents stand, and having that scorer operator to assist you with that can be helpful. Another set of games have kind of indirect scoring, like Concordia, and I think there's an assistant out there as well, where you're picking up your cards that allow you to do X, but in addition to that, they are doing Y, which is your victory points, and be able to kind of keep a handle on that as you go along as to what your victory point sets are standing at currently. I think is a very handy way to go forward. Okay. There are another there's another set of apps out there that are either supported or not supported, mostly supported, that are takes the board game and just simply translates it into online, like I think when we talked about a couple of episodes ago. Carcassonne, of course, has a fairly useful implementation that, if you're playing on the iPad, can often be said to be a more complete experience than the board game version, in that the scoring is handled for you. All the rules are being kept for you as you go along, whereas it's possible you can screw some of those up if you're not careful on the board.
And that brings up a good point. Is like, what about the board games that are basically like ported out to app form? What about the people out there who say, well, hell, if you're just going to play a board game on the app, just don't have the board game and just play the app?
Again, that's pretty absolutist position. From my point of view, some people are going to like doing it on one way, and some people are going to like it the other way, and some are going to mix it up. I like playing several games. Again, Carcassonne being a sample of that, and if I remember right, there's one from Midgard. It wasn't Midgard. It's Waterdeep, that are just simply different. The same rules implemented in very much the same way. It's two different experiences, and they're both good. And I don't think there's any reason to kind of limit one or the other if people are going to buy both of them.
Yeah, like I do the same with like Elder Sign. I enjoy playing the actual physical board game copy of it. There's aspect. I like the feel of the cards. I like to be able to roll dice. But if I'm sitting at the doctor's office, I'm waiting there for like 20 minutes. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna play. Just a quick thing to see how soon I go insane. So stuff like that.
There are some.
It's convenient and aspect like that. That's typically when I usually take an app version of a board game and play it on the phone.
No, there's other times I feel the other way. Scythe being a perfect example because of the strength of its art direction. Even if there was a online version of Scythe, I would generally want to play it. Both for the fact that it has, some physical attraction for play, but also in this particular case, the physical ability to interact with others, I think, is a larger portion of the game.
Right.
A game that has a diplomacy element into it, or when you're building alliances, I think it's going to get some sort of short shrift by playing online. I mean, there is that chat capability, and that's great. But I think it's much more enhanced when you have, face to face.
And the cool thing about Mansions of Madness Second Edition is, again, getting back to it and really doing that social interaction with the game is, typically any other game or most other games I've sat in, people they'll have their phone, but we're playing one thing and they're on their phone playing, Angry Birds or something. They're not going off on their own little adventure on their own tablet or phone. They're
texting Bob about what's online. Yeah, I got it.
So they're all kind of focused on one purpose, one endeavor, and with at least interaction with the app that way.
Well, one thing to keep an eye on too is this: the online proposition. Unless you're doing something very simple, again, like a scoring app, and even then, there's a complexity to the development process that can be an issue. Fantasy Flight Games, they have, for the most part, enough resources to put into that to make a enjoyable and properly tested form.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if more individual, independent type developer teams are going to be able to apply that kind of level of testing and validation, and just make so that there's no bugs to the process.
Right.
That's going to be tough. I don't know if the first Martian exactly fails or has a problem due to that issue, but it does seem as if there wasn't enough interface and interaction with the process that's been tested to make it so that it's not fairly straightforward, at least on your first set of plays, on how to use the interface.
I was thinking about that. We were talking about Mansions of Madness. I was thinking, and then there's First Martians.
Yeah.
I mean, at least with Mansions of Madness, you don't necessarily need the rule book. You pretty much when we do Mansions of Madness, the only thing we use the rule book for is the clarification of like movements. Okay, can I move here, or can I do this, or how do I start a fire?
On first play, there are a few issues in regards to figuring out how the process works, but after that, it becomes very straightforward. I haven't found that to be the case with First Martians.
First Martians kind of really it just kind of goes through the storyline with you, but it really doesn't assist you and help you with the rules or the setup. It relies on you really understanding the rule book. And unfortunately, since the rule book is
poorly put together, in my opinion, and that's a shame. And you know what? There's ideas that Ignacy has in here that I think will be implemented in the future that are great. One is scenarios can be updated and/or new scenarios can be implemented because it's online. That's a terrific idea. That's a living game, and perhaps a living game that's cheaper than the expansion process. So I don't want to say completely that First Martians is necessarily a failure. It's more along the lines of kind of striking out into a new direction and learning as we go.
Yeah.
And of course, I don't think Ignacy had the resources that Fantasy Flight had.
And I think a lot of companies are now even taking that approach with their rule book. I mean, they'll include Fantasy Flight Games, a classic example. Typically, you would get 2 books with their games. You get the how to play, and then you get a more extensive, rule book or rules reference. And I think now they're starting to, at least the first game I seen it in was Legend of the Five Rings, is where you get a how to play book, physical book in the game. But if you want to do the rules reference, you would go on their website or online and download it. So when time comes for any errata or FAQs or things like that they need,
they can get up to date.
Update. You go to the website and there you go.
Now, it's interesting, and I agree with you. They reversed that for Game of Thrones, which was a couple of years earlier. Game of Thrones, the rule book came with the game, but the how to play demo process was reserved for YouTube, which was very well presented, by the way. I thought it was pretty well done. one last thing I'd like to bring up that's different about online versus, just straight up board game is part of what Mentions and Madness also does, which is add music, kind of audio narrative into the process. In other words, you've got the kind of music that reminds you of the theme. You've got a narrator who introduces a scenario, which I wish they would enhance that even further in the next set of versions that they may do. I think that works terrific in the game.
Yeah.
So, and again, I think that's where the future goes as well.
Yeah. So we put out a little poll on our Facebook and Twitter and some of our other social media stuff. At least the time of recording, we got quite a bit of feedback, which is really cool. I kind of boiled it down to just two choices: love it or hate it. So it's a real, ironclad, scientific, controlled, peer-reviewed, published.
This will be settled scientifically for a long time. Or not.
Well, it's for initially it was like right down the middle. We had the same amount of people that loved it or hated it. Basically, if you go to our Facebook page, what is your opinion about apps in board games? And I put in, hey, you apps, get off of my board game. So the poll had two choices: love it, it enhances it, or hate it, I'm a purist. It's I probably should have put in I don't care, or it depends, or stuff like that. But so far we've got 51 votes. So even if it's tied, we have at least one person as a tiebreaker here. So we got it's pretty close right now. 29 says love it, it enhances it, and 22 says hate it, I'm a purist. But there's a few people who commented on that to just, clarify and thanks to everybody who commented and interacted with us. That was pretty cool when we put something out and actually get some feedback. And but the very first comment is from Sam Jackson, and he says, needs a neutral option, which I agree. I certainly don't dislike them, but it's not like having app assistance is a selling point for me either. It also depends on how well it is implemented and executed for me. Luckily, all the games with apps I have used have been very polished and have given a positive experience so far. And then Dave Ittner says, I think it really enhances games that need a moderator. One Night Werewolf.
Agree. Well said.
Yep. Or allow players to play fully cooperative, Mansions of Madness, Imperial Assault. Yeah, we touched on that, yep. And then Blake Benzel says, it makes games easier to play, in my opinion. The Sword and Sorcery app makes the game infinitely easier to track. The legendary randomization apps make setup and teardown so much quicker. And that's not even mentioning the FFG apps that allow you to play some of their games fully co-op. And then James Campbell says, I chose hate it, I'm a purist, but it's got nothing to do with being a purist per se. I just hate having devices in use during game time, plus the need to have an app instead of everything in the box ready to go. And then he comments further later and says, although I do use the Dead of Winter Crossroads app because that voiceover is much more dramatic than any of our regular players' readings of the cards. Yeah, and I even mentioned I even mentioned with our guest today in this episode in our conversation, which we'll hear on the second half of this episode, that things like they have an app for Sherlock Holmes consulting detective, and rather than read like a good 3-page long setup of the case, just go to the app and the case you're working on, and there's like a dramatic recording of those pages. So you just listen to the setup and then play the case.
And just to kind of back up what was just said, I'm sure any of those guys can do a better British accent than me. So,
yep. And then finally, the last comment right now, at least at the time we're recording this, is from Christina Fike or Fick. Sorry if I'm butchering these names, but Christina says, Mansions of Madness, staring at a screen the entire time, the game board in pieces, no matter how awesome the board and detailed the pieces, becoming hardly necessary to even have created. Limited playthrough because you need the story the app gives you. 4 stories, that's it. Ugh. She said, I hated it. Not because I'm a purist, but because I felt like playing a tablet game with adults huddled around the screen rather than an actual board game. So, yes.
Yeah, and that's a valid point about Mansions of Madness. Unless you go out and get extensions, it does have limited replay for that purpose. Although there is changes that you can make in your selections, it's still going to be the same base scenario. So I get that point, and that's where Ignacy, I think, was trying to go the right way with First Martians, that it's expandable because of that purpose. So
right.
We'll see how it goes.
Our group, there's been a few people that we've played a scenario Mansions numerous times. Since the last time we played that particular scenario, it's like, oh, okay, I remember this one. So you kind of know
blah blah blah. Right?
It's like Time Stories. You know pretty much what you need to do, but we have found some variations of once you tell them what collections you have of the different tiles that are used or things like that. So it changes it up that way, but it's still of the end result is still the same. They just kind of change up the route you take to get there.
Right. Sometimes the physical location changes, but it's just that. It's just a change in physical location.
Right.
Mostly everything else is varied. Yep, I gotcha.
So, and you brought up something early with the things like music and sound effects. Some people find it distracting, and other people feel like that really creates a mood while you're playing a particular game, or and not only even just sound effects, or maybe you're playing a historical game or some period piece. Music that was popular at that time, kind of playing underneath role playing.
Yeah, Patrice and I are exact opposites on that side of the things. I love to have like some sci-fi music going on while we're playing, say, Eclipse or a game that's a future style game. If a war game's on, like a Napoleonic game, I'd like to have kind of Beethoven or something like that, or whatever playing in the background that kind of matches the role. Patrice finds that distracting, and asks pretty much 5 minutes in, can you turn that off, please?
It's like the example I think of is you're driving around, you're trying to find something, and it's like you got to turn the radio off or down.
Yeah, because you got to concentrate. Yeah, I hear you. Yep.
All right. Yeah. So apps and board games. It's like Reese's peanut butter cups. You remember that commercial? It's like two people are bumping each other. One has a jar of peanut butter, and the other one's eating chocolate. And they bump into each other. It's like, yeah, you got your chocolate and my peanut butter. Well, you got your peanut butter and my chocolate. And like, oh, two great tastes that taste great together.
And then, or not.
Yeah, exactly. Or not. Apps and board games. The Reese's peanut butter cups of board games.
And, for each individual, your mileage may vary.
Definitely. So thank you so much to everybody out there who voted in our quasi-questionable scientific poll.
Yes, and please make sure you vote. The fate of the free world stands on the results.
That's right. And then also everybody's comments that so your feedback and comments are well appreciated, and that's the kind of thing that we're looking for and hoping for when we put these things out here. So to get feedback, and it's always good to get the perspective and opinions of other people out there.
Yeah, and if you guys want to give us ideas for topics we can cover that may produce, interesting comments on your side, or they produce interesting polls, please suggest those to us. We'd be happy to take up those kind of ideas and move forward with them.
Definitely. In fact, that's how we got the topic for today. Our guest for this episode is Seth Locke, a.k.a. FatNastyNerd on YouTube. And he had I asked him if there's I invited him on the show and told him some things I wanted to discuss with him about. And then I asked him, is there something you want to talk about? And he said, well, I've always wanted to talk about board games with apps. I was like, okay, cool. So to keep the continuity of the episode going is like, all right, that's our topic for this episode. All right. Well, thank you so much, Al, and stay warm, stay inside.
Yeah, I was going to say, stay warm, Tom.
Yes.
Keep in front of the fireplace.
Yep, definitely. Move on with our guest of this episode. And again, it's Seth with Fat Nasty Nerds from YouTube. And we'll go to him right now. All right, welcome back to the Mega Meeple, and we're talking about games and apps. And now I've had various people interviewed on the show before, but I don't think I've actually interviewed a fellow content creator. But this guy is more on the YouTube video side, and we have with us today Seth from the, let me see if I get this right, the Fat Nasty Nerd Runthroughs, right?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah.
Okay. Well, first off, branding is everything, I guess, but how did you come up with that name?
So, about 3 years ago, I think is whenever I started my channel, maybe going on 4, I was deciding what to come up with for my name, and it kind of ties back into my Xbox Live gamer tag, which used to be called FatNastyNerd, which I spent forever trying to come up with. I was like, I need to come up with a name that signifies, who I am as a person and stuff like that. So I really like fantasy, and I'm a nerd, so there's that. Well, every time I logged on, everyone thought it said Fat Nasty Nerd. And I'm like, no, guys, that's not it. And eventually that's just what they started calling it. And I'm like, you know what? Fine. I'll change it. So I just changed it to that. And I paid the $10 because there's a fee to change your gamer tag. So I changed it to Fat Nasty Nerd. And then I kind of just ran with that. And then my type of humor is off the wall humor. Right. So whenever people come to my video, they expect to see, the stereotypical nerd, and then at least I hope people don't think I'm fat or nasty, and so that whenever they log on and they're like, well, where's the guy? And it's me. So at this point, it's just more. I think it's funnier to me than it is anyone else, but. I should mention that I'm slowly revamping the channel name and the channel logo, so it will change soon. But that's where that name came from.
Okay, well, yeah. I mean, it definitely conjures up the quintessential stereotype 500-pound guy.
Exactly.
The mom's basement, and just plug it away with a headset and just. Smash talking everybody online on videos.
Exactly. So that's why I kind of I don't know. It was just a play on that, and I thought it was funny. So that's just what I went with. And then it's expensive to come up with an animation or a new logo because you need people who can actually do that. Unfortunately, I am not that type of person, so I need to find someone with the skill set to do it. I do have a new name that I'll be going to, but I won't go to that until I can, change, the logo and everything.
All right. Well, I know that this particular episode, we're talking about games with apps or games in apps, or but when you introduce the whole thing of apps to board games, I guess I could bleed over to board games that have been ported over to app only type of thing, like Sign and stuff like that. But,
yeah, that was
So what proponent are you of with apps? Do you think board games should just stay physical board games, or is the whole digital realm getting more modern and improving it, or hindering the board game?
I think it depends, because there, kind of with almost anything, it has to be done well. So I can't just stand on one side and be like, no, all board games should stay as board games, or all apps, or no apps in board games, Right. But so I'm going to be talking about those that do it well, because my whole argument could be debunked by just one bad implementation of an app within a board game, or vice versa. I personally think that board games should kind of revolutionize themselves as with the majority of its audience, and as the board game industry grows, it seems like it's marketing towards a lot of younger people, and a lot of younger people use technology. It's just to be in the mindset that no, it only has to stay as a board game. No technology is kind of I guess ignorant would be, for lack of a better term.
I would think if they do that, they kind of shoot themselves in the foot and get more.
Exactly.
That's when you cross the line into the whole exclusivity. We're like an elite club that we only play physical board games or something like that.
And there's those purists out there who I almost feel like they get upset when more people get into board games. But no, you want the hobby to grow. You want it to be recognized as a, competitive aspect of, let's say video games. Because, you pretty much almost compare the two. At least I do. So it's no, you want it to grow, because that's how you get better games out there, by bringing in more people who have ideas, and they're like, oh, I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know modern board gaming was still around, and then they come up with their own design, and it's some awesome game that everyone can enjoy. So whenever you allow younger people or a variety of options within board games, then you just get better ideas. So let's take a look at a few games that use an app and use it well. Let's Mansions of Madness, 2nd edition.
Yep.
We have Descent or Star Wars Imperial Assault with the app. I don't like Descent as a game, but let's talk about the Star Wars one. And then Alchemist. Let's just take these three and use them. So the best one that I can think of is probably Mansions of Madness, 2nd edition.
Yeah, that's sort of that's the one that people need to knock off the throne to be considered one of the best. So I think that they've really utilized that app aspect when they came out the 2nd edition as best that I could. If there's a way to improve it, I could think of ways that they could improve the actual app, but the implementation and just converging the board game with the app, that's the way to do it. They do. It's so good. Within the app itself, you just have a whole new atmosphere while you're playing. Because one thing that I find, even still when playing games, is that you're kind of, depending on your players, you're very aware that you're playing a board game. And so with an app that adds music and sound effects and voices and voice acting, you're drawn into a world, and you're kind of forgetting, oh, we're playing a game. Kind of like what video games do. So it does that implementation the best. Now, the problem that
someone can argue with that app alone is that you can't play the game without it. And I think that might be where people get, rubbed the wrong way and get upset, is that, well, I don't want to spend $90 on this game and have to have a device that allows me to play it. And I can see where they're coming from with that, because at some point they are forcing you to go out and spend even more money if you don't have a phone that allows it, or a laptop, or, I mean, at this point, it's like, come on, like how far back in the Stone Age are you that you have no accessories to use? Like, it's not
at the very least, you have like a PC or a computer or something that download it on screen and play it on screen sometimes. That's what we do.
Exactly. And I know people who do that. They'll use their actual computer because they don't like using their phone. It's too small, whereas their computer it's a lot more manageable to click around and read and stuff like that. So Fantasy Flight definitely gives you the options to play their games. So if we go to, actually Mansion Madness does this as well, but Star Wars Imperial Assault and the Descent app do this, to where they take that, I don't want to really say busted mechanic, but that one versus all, where it's like that one person is facing off against everyone, where they they almost kind of DM it the way the original Mansion Madness did, and the way Imperial Assault did before the app and Descent, and they make it fully co-op.
Right.
And personally, I think that's great, because I very much I like being against other people, and there's a time in a game for that. Like hidden movement games, for example, like Letters from Whitechapel, I like being Jack the Ripper because I'm hiding from everyone, but that's a different mechanic, whereas these games with the app, they almost distracted, and it makes it more balanced. I always felt that the one person was always more powerful than the rest of them. So now that it's everyone working together against the app, it's even more challenging, but it's a shared challenge between all players, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've heard a lot from people who played the first edition rather frequently, is that once they played that one person in the one versus many or the GM type rule in that game, they're pretty much, they're pigeon code in it. They're stuck with that rule. Every time that game comes out, they're the one that's going to be playing that one. And that app really makes it making it cooperative. It's like, okay, finally, I get to play this game as an investigator.
Right. That's a good point, actually. I didn't even notice that, because typically it's like, the most experienced person should play the one person. That typically is the one who owns the game. Very rarely can you get another person to try that role, and even if they do, they're kind of, at a disadvantage because they've never done it before. And then, so, I mean, I really like the apps. I think that they work really well whenever they're, the company has spent the time and money putting it. And it's just, I think it's neat. Like, one of the first ones I can think of is the third game I mentioned, Alchemist, to where that's not even, like Mansions and Star Wars and all them, that's mostly the game, and you're kind of following along with the board game a little bit. Whereas Alchemist, the other side was you're still playing the worker placement game. You're still doing everything. All the app does is make the concoctions easier to figure out. You scan the pictures, and it tells you what it is secretly, and just gives you a nice sound effect, and it still kind of draws you in a little bit more, but you're still playing the board game. And personally, I think that's awesome, but that's one of those games as well that you need the app to play, but they came up with a way that you don't have to, but it pretty much is one person is sitting there not playing the game and telling everyone what their, configurations are. And I mean, just don't ever do that. Just get the app.
Yeah. And that brings up a point that there's the apps that are the integral part of the board game, and then there are apps out there that's sort of just like an assist. Like there's an app for Zombicide, there's an app for Scythe, There's an app for basically to keep track of whose turn it is, how many turns they made. Particularly with Sidekick, I love that one because it helps keep a score, tally up the score.
Oh, yeah.
It's a lot easier. And then apps like for Sherlock Holmes, Consulting Detective, they have an app that if you don't want to read the 3 pages of the setup, you just go to the app and it's an actor dramatization of the setup of each case, and you just listen to it. It's not like necessary or required to play the game, but it's just it's just that little sprinkle on top of the glazed donut type of thing where it makes it enhances the experience. So
Sorry, I was just going to say I didn't even know that the Sherlock Holmes had one, so now I need to go get that. But the assist apps, I think, are a kind of a gateway experience. If people are so adamant about not having apps in their game, just kind of bring it out occasionally and be like, see how much more atmospheric this game is, how much it draws you in more than just sitting in silence and like kind of being aware that you're sitting in silence too, which can kind of kill a game. It's like, hell, even getting some background music like from an app that is specifically for that game just changes the whole, theme of it. And I mean, I know with board games, depending on your style, even Euro gamers and like all want theme. They just want to feel like they're doing something other than rolling dice and moving. And I think apps assist with that.
Yeah. I finally got a copy of Time Stories, and we played through the Asylum. And while we were playing it, one of our players got out his phone and caught up on iTunes, 1920s, big band music and stuff like that. So we were listening to that as we were playing these insane people in the Asylum, going through Time Stories. I've met some gamers that find that distracting, but at least the groups that I've commonly played with, it's like, that just adds to the experience.
Right. And then I know that you wanted to talk about fully fledged games going to apps,
right?
Which is a whole nother thing. Like if people already hate apps with their board game, oh my gosh, yeah, they're gonna freak out when they tell them, hey, this can be played as an app. And here's the thing: if people are going to complain about an app, with a game or a board game going to an app, then just don't play the game. Like it's as simple as that. But let's talk about those implementations. So the one that I have on my phone, the two that, because I still prefer the physical copy. But the games that I have gotten are games that I will never get to the table, games that take forever to play, but I still really like the game. And one of those is Through the Ages, a game that on the table takes like 6 hours to play, but as an app it takes 30 minutes, and I still get to play the game, and that is fantastic to me. I think that is awesome, and once again, if it's done well, and I'm only going to talk about the ones that do it well. So Through the Ages is an awesome implementation of a board game going to an app, and because it functions the exact same way. It's just quicker. You play against computers, and hell, if you want to play against someone else, you can add them in and just pass the phone around, and it still takes a fraction of the time than it does if you were to set up the whole game, get people to come over, and then play it.
Right. Yeah, and actually another. There's one game it came out in Kickstarter summer last year, but Restoration Games have been coming out with these old games that have been out 20, 30 or so years ago, and just basically revamping it, giving it a modern twist. And one of my favorites was a game called Stop Thief. You require the app to play it, but they just revamped the whole board game because they took us. I remember playing that game back when I was a teenager or some years ago, and and the first thing I thought was, oh God, don't screw it up. It's like, I mean, Hollywood can't be trusted to come up with a reboot and have it not suck. It's like, don't reboot one of my favorite childhood games and have it suck. But I had Yeah, I had to issue like an apology to Rob Davio and Restoration Case. Like, I'm sorry, I was wrong. You guys did a good job with this one. I like it. So yeah, they just and that's an example of a game they just took from, I guess, a time or age where, you know, board games was pretty much just the whole Monopoly or Risk or Trouble or stuff like that from that era, and they just brought it to the modern age, and not only brought it in with an app, but also upgraded the components and just some of the mechanics of the game itself. Like the original game, you did movement via dice. They just did away with the dice, and they do it with each investigator has their own unique set of cards with unique talents and abilities to them, which wasn't in the original game. So, yeah, that's an example of them just taking an old game that was good at the time and just bringing it now to, I guess, modern specs, I guess, or expectations.
That's a good point. I didn't even think about the fact that they could bring back, you know, games that are kind of dead, like you just mentioned, and apps and technology allows that to basically get a new breath of life. Because there are games out there that people like rave about, but they're super old, and if you try to play them now, it's like, oh, really? Roll the move, cool. And apps would allow that to be updated because board games need to be constantly evolving if they want to stay ahead. If they want to be as popular as they are now, or even become even more popular, they can't stay in that, you know, we're a board game, this is what it needs to be. It's like, well, then you're gonna lose your audience. You're gonna crash in that market.
Right. And
luckily, we're in an era of board games right now where it's just constantly being innovative and evolving and making games like Gloomhaven, Seventh Continent, you know, Folklore, all these games that are just basically video game adaptations, just physical, you know, which is awesome because, like, most of my life I've played video games, and it's not just up until 3 years ago that I got into this hobby and it took off with the YouTube channel and stuff, to where I hardly ever play video games. I'd personally rather play a board game, and kind of still throwing in the apps allows me to still get that video game feel, which I still enjoy, but into a hobby I enjoy more.
Right.
Personally, I've met very few people who hate apps who have been so adamant, but I know it's a huge controversy within the community, and I just don't understand why.
Yeah. It's almost like they don't want the board game hobby to expand or to get more people into it.
Right.
I mean, if anybody's listened to the podcast any length of time knows that I'm a big advocate of being social, getting out there and meeting people, making new friends.
Yeah. And so, I mean, because I think what it comes down to is people like to have their own. So, like, I'm so into board game, not me personally, but just like a person, like, is so into board games that's like their identity. And whenever more people get into it, they start to feel like that they're not unique anymore. And that just stems from, I guess, insecurity to where it's like, no, I don't want more people. It's me and my games, and I'm the only one. It's like you're not. Like, that's extremely delusional. Like, let people enjoy your hobby. Like, if you share a love, you should enjoy that other people also are getting into it. And now you can play your favorite games with them and not sit there and be weird.
Definitely. And and that's a good segue to another topic. And one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show. It would be really arrogant for anybody to think, oh, I'm the only one who does content creation. I'm the only nobody is allowed to do a gaming podcast except for me. But
right.
But I mean, tribute to like dice. You can never have too many dice, so you can never have too many gaming shows. So, but I've interviewed a lot of game creators and designers and other people in the industry, but I don't think I've ever had a fellow content creator on the show. Now, you don't have do you have a podcast, or do you have, and I'm not aware of it, but
I thought about doing a podcast just to ramble on about, things that wouldn't really make sense in a video. But ultimately, since, my channel isn't a full-time job, I don't have the time to add a podcast on top of maintaining a video or a channel.
Okay. So you're primarily on the YouTube end of things. And, that's something that I'm just now, I'd say maybe half the videos up there are just audio uploads of the podcast with, I guess, still a picture on it. But it's kind of self-serving that I had you on the episode here, because I'm wanting to learn what you've learned by doing it, and sort of like actually getting out there. Because you had the YouTube channel for 3 years.
I'm gonna go with 3 years. I think it might be a little bit over at this point, but this was close to 3 years.
Okay. What have you learned by doing that as you have grown and improved as a YouTuber?
Oh man, I've actually learned a lot. So let me kind of go back to the beginning. I think the biggest thing that I've learned is you have to have, if you're going to make any type of content, you have to be comfortable with who you are as a person, and you have to have a clear goal in mind of what you want to do, because it's very obvious almost instantaneously when people click on your video and they're like, this guy has no idea what he has to say, what he wants to do for this video, and you will not get any interest in that. So when I first started my channel, I thought I had an idea of what I wanted to do. It was going to be kind of like a Rado style thing where it could be first-person camera, but I was going to play with my friends, and it was going to be kind of no mistakes whatsoever. So if we made any rules mess-ups, we would refilm the whole thing. And looking back, I'm like, that is the dumbest idea I have ever had. Because it's like the time it would take to get one video out and to study the rules and be like, no, this is how it's played. Oh, you messed up. We have to do the whole game over again. It's just idiotic. So totally scrapped that idea after I think I did 2 videos at the beginning of my channel where it was first-person camera. And one I did by myself, and the other one I did with friends, and that was Legends of Andor, which is still funny and still on my channel because, I don't know, it actually has a lot of views for some reason. And then Relic, which I actually have deleted. So it's just have a clear goal in mind, have a clear understanding of what you want to do and how you want to do it, and then stick to that. And of course, over time, your content and your channel will evolve, but it shouldn't change. It shouldn't be like, oh, I'm doing this whole thing now. And another thing that I've learned is if you're going to be on YouTube, for example, you have to understand how YouTube works. Now, I don't watch a lot of TV and I don't watch a lot of shows because a lot of my viewing goes onto YouTube. I have a bunch of different subscribers or subscriptions of videos that I want to watch. So I've kind of understood the algorithm of YouTube and how it works. So whenever it came to that, and if you want to grow on YouTube, you kind of have to, I guess, understand that world because it's a different beast to handle within YouTube. So I've understand the platform that you're on and what causes views, what causes likes, what causes subscriptions, and then that's kind of the start. Those were kind of the 2 biggest things that I've learned at the beginning. And as time grew, I kind of came into my own. And another thing is that what you learn is you have to understand that it doesn't happen overnight, like at all. It's taken me three plus years to get to, let's see how many subscribers I have, to get to 930 subscribers. So, and that's through complete dedication, consistent uploading, and going, out and meeting, other content creators. Like I have personally been on Rahdo's show multiple times because he is way bigger of a YouTuber than I am. So I was like, well, if I can somehow get onto his channel, then that'll give me more, get me a different audience and get me, more people who would know my channel exists. And once I did that, I got a hold of him somehow. I don't even remember how I got a hold of him, and asked, hey, can I be on your channel? Is there any way we can do a collaboration? And he's like, well, I used to do a Kickstarter thing. See if anyone has a co-host slot, and you can buy it from them. I'm like, all right, cool. So I did that, and then I was on his channel. I went from 20 subscribers to over 100 in one night.
Wow.
And then it coasted out pretty much there. And there's so much I've learned now that you have me talk about it. Is like I said, it doesn't happen overnight. So whenever I first started, it's almost natural to constantly see, what views your videos get, how many subscribers you're getting, and I promise you, it is going to be extremely daunting when you go on and check how many subscribers you have. Let's say you have 10 and you go down to 9. It's almost like, well, fine, I guess I just won't try anymore. And if that one subscriber loss causes you to feel like it's not worth it, if you're not gaining anything, hell, even if you're at 10 subscribers and you check the next day and you're still at 10 subscribers, it still feels like you're not making a difference, or you're not getting. A lot of people are like, well, that person got 4 million subscribers from this one video, and it's like, well, yeah, there is a 1 in a million chance for an industry like board games, you're not going to get that huge spike because it's still a smaller industry compared to video games. Right. So just be consistent, know what you want to do with your channel, and then eventually you will get an audience, you will get loyal subscribers. I have quite a bit of loyal subscribers to my channel who constantly comment on my videos, who have told me personally that they love my channel because it feels like their own gaming group. It feels like finally, hey, a channel that I can relate to instead of it being a channel where, oh, it's just another person talking. I don't really, because another thing is like people like to feel like I like to think that people know me through my channel, so they can go on and hopefully distract them from the outside world, or feel like that, hey, I'm friends with this guy. I don't know, but that didn't happen tonight. Like that was way later, years later, before I finally got 2 subscribers who constantly reached out to me and wanted to do things and commented constantly. So it's just patience, honestly.
Yeah, and I know what you mean, because that's at least for my podcast. That's why I don't do scripts.
Oh, right.
The only thing really, I think when you listen to the podcast, I think the only thing that you hear that is actually scripted is the intro and the outro. That's it. Everything in between is we're just shooting off the top of our head. Talking about it, you want people to get to know a person or know who you are through your show. And to me, it's like they're not going to know me by me reading the script. So
right.
Yeah, most of the editing I do is getting rid of the foo bars and the bloopers and stuff, and some of the long silences. But I to a certain extent I keep all the ums and r's and ohs in there because to me it sounds natural. I think you touched on something when you approach Rahdo, and it's like when you approach somebody, especially when you're doing a collaboration, is bring something, offer them something, or bring something to the table that they could benefit from as well. And that's what you do with the Rado. It's like you didn't just contact them and say, "Hey, can I do your channel?" You actually approach them as like, "Okay, hey, this is I like to work with you. I like your work. I like your style, and here's some of my work. This is what I could bring to the table."
Right. And it's difficult because sometimes when you want to do a collab, who you're collabing with may have a completely different viewpoint. And I think Rado's done it long enough that he understood that, because my channel is obviously no holds barred. And I've had people tell me, "Well, I wish you weren't like that. I'd watch you more." And I'm like, well, I mean, I'm sorry to hear that, but it's not going to change. That's the niche of my channel, and the fact that I do full run-throughs, that's the whole thing. And it's like, I'm sorry, I wish you would watch it, but I understand. I'm not like angry. I'm not like, "Oh no, you and your kids have to sit down and listen to my vulgarity."
And this gets a point out for those of you who are not onto the YouTube channel. It is. If YouTube channel's videos got a rating, his would be rated. Seth would be rated R for language, right? That's a fair assessment, right?
There's very few things I will not allow on my channel. Stream derogatory. If we're making jokes blatantly to actually hurt someone's feelings, right, then I don't. One, we don't do that. But if someone were to do that, I would edit it out and not allow it. And so, racial slurs and stuff like that, where it's like we're actually directly trying to target someone, that's never happened, and it's never. And I don't allow it. Other than that, it's pretty much fair game. Like, I kind of like to think of my channel as like the South Park of board gaming. And that's like way like, wow, get off your high horse kind of thing. But it's like my humor stems from, like I've mentioned, off-the-wall humor. And South Park, for example, is a show that no one is free from criticism or from being made fun.
They're not immune.
They will hit every single group, every single idea, every single religion, and that's kind of what we do on my channel. I'll make fun of anything as long as I think it's funny. And so I understand that, and I understood that from the very beginning when I started my channel, that that's what I wanted to do. That is natural for me and my group of friends, and that's what it is. Now, obviously, I still try to be a little bit more professional about it. I'm not just out there saying crude jokes just for the sake of doing it. It still has to be natural to the content, but that's that. But yeah, so Rado obviously is a very family-friendly YouTuber for his channel. And whenever I talk to him, he's like, "Well, obviously, no cussing, no jokes like that." And I mean, I was obviously very respectful. I'm not sitting there like, "No, I have to cuss," because I was like, "Yeah, no problem," because it's not. I don't have to. It's just very simple for me to kind of turn that off and be like, "All right, yep, this is your channel. We're going to follow your rules." Kind of like, this is your podcast. I'm following your rules, and that's just, you have to be respectful when dealing with someone else, especially if you're going to be on their format and on their channel. Because if I came in and was just doing things that were completely opposite of what you wanted, if you happen to upload it, you're going to piss off your subscribers. That's another thing I've learned. Kind of a good segue into. I kind of mentioned earlier that it can be very daunting if you don't get subscribers, and how you have to be consistent. Because, like I said, I've had friends who tried to do YouTube and they weren't getting as much traction, as much views or subscribers as they thought they would, and they quit. And there's dry spells all the time. Like my 930 didn't, like I said, happen overnight, and there were times where I wasn't getting any for weeks. And here's another thing that I've learned is that some people suck. I've heard comments like people would ask the guys over at Shut Up and Sit Down or Dice Tower. They're like, "How do you handle negative comments or negative people? And when is it ever funny?" And they're like, "It's never funny." And at first I was like, I used to be that guy that would 10 years ago when leaving comments on, and I'm like, this is so funny, I'm hilarious. But now being the content creator, is that you find that some people suck. I don't know what it is, but negative comments are they're always just awful to read, because you want people to naturally like you, even those who say, no, I don't care what people think. No, you do, because it hurts when people bash something that you've put hard work into.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing I've learned, is you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. I kind of have an easier way of doing it, because if anyone leaves a negative comment, like not like a correction or like, something about the actual game, that I'll actually, like it so people can see it. But the people are directly targeting us people. It's like, first of all, what's wrong with you as a human being? Like, you're really sitting there at your computer and you're like typing this out. You're like, oh, I'm going to get him. Like, this is like nowhere in that typing that you were like, no, this is kind of far. I should probably not do this. But like I said, some people suck. And also I have an easier way of doing it, because I'm just going to make fun of you on my channel. It's a no-holds-barred channel. Like, you're not free from criticism if you're going to criticize me. We're just going to laugh at you. So I understand reviewers and people who are more family-friendly can't really do that, and maybe they're a little better than I am because they choose not to. But it's just.
We just talk really bad about them when no one's listening or watching.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't record it when we're doing it.
Exactly. That's probably how they get through it. But I'll record it. I'll be like, this guy left a comment on my video. Let's make fun of him right now. And
that reminds me of. You ever hear of a guy named Glenn Fricker?
I have not.
I do some music and stuff with recording, but he's on YouTube and he's an audio engineer. He does like these reviews of like amps or guitars or something like that. And if it sucks, he'll say so, and he'll end the video with that sort of like paying homage to Office Space, where they drag the amp out into the field, and they play rap music, and he takes this sledgehammer and just busts the whole thing up. But he has a weekly show that he does stupid musician text that musicians text or email to their audio engineer when they're in the studio, and he makes fun of his favorite victims are bass players, which I'm a bass player and I kind of get his stuff is funny, but yeah. So it kind of remind me of a Glenn Fricker of board games. So
I mean, that sounds awesome, because like there's nothing I like more than, one, people enjoying the content, because it makes me feel like because it's just me. Whenever it comes to my videos, like I'm the one who sets up all the cameras. I have my own editing. I edit all my videos. I'm the one who inserts the interviews, because kind of like if you ever seen Tabletop, how they interrupted with interviews, I basically stole that from them, and my videos have interviews as well, which kind of helps because it fills the dead space if there is any, and adds, if we're not being as funny as I'd like, it allows opportunity for jokes to be put in. So I do that. I do all that myself. I come up with skit ideas, and then my friends, come and help me with our skits, and then I upload it. So I literally do everything. I don't have anyone who helps me except my girlfriend, who makes the thumbnails for my videos. But other than that, it's all me. And that's another thing that I've learned, is that it is a time dedication. Like I mentioned consistency, that nothing is harder than coming up with the time to sit here and do all of this. And I've kind of ingrained it into my daily schedule on whenever I need to edit and what videos are going to upload. And just recently, because it's, now it's the new year, before I did my top 10 games of 2017, I wanted to play all these games that could have potentially made it on the list. And so I sat down, and luckily I have a few friends and my girlfriend who were dedicated enough to help me out, and we played like 4 or 5 games like in a row, and recorded them. And then because recording them is the easiest part. It's the fact that, oh, now I have 5 games I need to edit, and they're on average an hour and a half.
Yeah.
So I sit there and I do all that. Now I need to bring them back and put interviews in. Oh, and we also need to do skits. And it's awesome. They especially because my girlfriend, lives with me, so she kind of doesn't really have a choice. So my friend who helped me, I couldn't thank him enough for coming over all the time and interviews and skits, doing all of that to help me out. And it paid off. I was able to get the top 10, but yeah, it's just. I understand I'm the exception because a lot of people won't do skits. If you want to just do reviews, that's way easier. I've had people tell me, hey, you should, just kind of do a best of the run through and shorten your videos or just do reviews. And I'm like, nope, that's not my channel. If I just do reviews, I'm no different than Board Game Brawl, than Dice Tower. Then shut up and sit down. I want to at least be unique. And
right.
So that's why it's full run-throughs. And if I don't like the game, or if it's an expansion, or if I just really don't have time, I'll do what I call a no run-through review, which is something that pretty much came up if I didn't want to record the whole thing or play the whole game again. So essentially there are games I don't like. Not always, though, because sometimes they're expansions. But yeah, it's one of those things that you have to want to do it. If you're kind of, on the channel, it's going to crash and burn, and that's going to be that. But I think over time it will grow. I'm only 70 away from 1,000 subscribers, and you just have to realize that even one more subscriber is one more person talking about your channel. One more, so it's a slow build, but it will continue to work. And another thing that I really want to stress. You have to have a disconnect because my channel is not my job, so it's more of a hobby, which is helpful. If you're trying to make a career out of it, it's kind of like serving. I fully feel like serving. If it's not your main source of income, it's a lot of fun. But if you're stressing out over, hey, I really need a good tip on this table to pay my bills, you're going to have a bad time. Kind of same with YouTube. Since it's a hobby, I can have a lot more fun with it and just kind of let the negative things go. The fact that I didn't get 15 subscribers in a day, I can let all of that go. But if you can disconnect, there were times where I won't even check how many subscribers I have. I used to check every day. Don't. Just let it naturally go, and then check if next time you upload. Or, once a week, at the end of the week or something, and then you'll be I found I was pleasantly surprised when I started doing that. It took a whole bunch of stress off. It took, I would get on and be like, oh, hey, I gained 5 subscribers in a week. Yay, that's awesome. Or in 2 weeks. And you just have to look more at the positives of things. Otherwise, you're going to have a bad time. And it's gonna flow into your videos. And then it's just going to go downhill from there.
Yeah. Yeah, but you bring up a good point with YouTube and also podcasting. I could tell you, yes, I do. You create content, do what you enjoy, do what you like. But yeah, do it because of the love of it. Don't do it for the numbers.
Exactly, because you will. You're not the only one who likes what you like.
Right.
So usually you'll get some recognition, and then you'll enjoy it a lot more because you're going to be surrounded by people who share the same viewpoint as you and share the same love for your content. Then it's just nice. And then, yeah, like I said, people suck, and they're going to come in and they're going to be hateful about it, and you can do with that what you will. Just, I wouldn't take it to heart because they're safe behind a computer. They would never say it to your face.
Right. Yeah, I'm all for constructive criticism, but if somebody said, I tell people hey, if you're gonna tell me I suck, tell me I'm suck, but at least end the comment with how you think I could suck less.
Yeah. I'll take it. I remember the more negative comment, and that you can kind of look at it as a positive as well, is that if you're getting negative comments, that's usually probably going to be because you're gaining more recognition. More people who don't like your content are seeing it. And people like that, you're going to get that one-time negative comment or that negative whatever. And if they're going to leave a negative comment, they're not going to come back. So It's just a one-time, hey, that guy sucked. So, all right, moving on. Because we as human beings focus on the negative way more than the positive. You can have a million positive comments and one negative comment, and that negative comment is going to bug you. So it takes some work and some self-realization to kind of be like, oh, okay, let me focus on all the positives. Oh, hey, yeah, whatever. Who cares about that negative one? Oh, look at all the people who like what I do. Obviously, the majority is there, so maybe I'm doing something right.
Right. Yeah, when people do give constructive criticism, yeah, they didn't like that aspect, but they care enough about the show and wanting to see it improve that they're willing to say, try this, or, this sounds too compressed, try this, that type of thing. And then we had one person say that he didn't like the music. Oh, well, sorry you feel that way there, but, that's more of a personal opinion type of thing than something that can be readily corrected or improved.
Yeah, something that my boss actually told me that I carry to this day is that if one person says something, then that's just their opinion. But if multiple people are saying it, maybe it's time to reflect on yourself. So whenever it comes to, if one person was like, hey, I don't like your jokes, it's like, all right, well, that's that. But if a lot of people are saying it, then maybe it's time to maybe look back and see what kind of jokes I'm making and be like, well, maybe I'm no longer keeping to my own formula, or maybe there's something wrong with, the music or the intro that we're doing. So let's take a look at that. And ultimately, change things that you personally want to change. And like you said, stick to do something that you love. Like, really, I like my logo and I like my YouTube name, but I understand that as my channel grows, I also kind of have to grow, because I kind of was given a logo from a friend that I really like. But it's like, well, now I kind of want to make it a little bit more professional, hit to a larger range of people, and just kind of make it a little bit better. And that's a decision I personally made. That wasn't anything that someone commented on. That's that.
Well, thank you so much, Seth. Now, if people want to find out more about you, your YouTube channel, Twitter, or anything like that, where can they go?
So, first of all, I want to say thank you very much for reaching out to me and having me on your podcast. This was a lot of fun. I've actually never done a podcast with anyone either, so it's kind of first for both of us.
Okay, cool.
If people want to find me, they can. It's FatNastyNerd, FatNastyNerd, space Runthroughs, and Runthroughs is also one word. It'll be a little fat person logo wearing like a wimpin hat,
complete with zips and everything.
Yeah, so it kind of fits. So they'll find that on YouTube, and then the same thing for Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Okay.
So cool. I'm pretty sure FatNastyNerd, that's also all one word. I'm pretty sure they'll pull up. Don't type it into Google. Don't go FatNastyNerd and leave it at that into Google, because you're going to get some weird stuff. But if you do the FatNastyNerd run through, you'll find, you can find my Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I'm constantly on Instagram. I like to share things a little bit more about the games that we're playing, but sometimes things about my personal life will be thrown in there. My Twitter is really just another place I share links to my videos. Obviously, YouTube is where my videos are at. And Facebook, I'm trying to become a little bit more personal within that as well. So memes and stuff coming from the board game world goes on there, as well as links to my videos. So that's where I'm at.
Cool. And of course, we'll put links to all those things in the show notes of this episode. All right. Well, thank you so much, Seth. And from one content creator to another, I appreciate you having time to come on the show. Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Well, thank you so much for listening to the Mega Meeple. If you'd like to help us out with hosting costs for the podcast, you go to our Pod Pledge site and donate $1 or so every month. Really helps out.
Yeah, we also have a Patreon presence, and we'd be happy if you also help us out there.
And also, if you are a creator or game designer, or you have a new Kickstarter coming out, and you'd like to be a guest on the show to talk about your game, you can contact us through the website, Again, that's www.themegameeple.com.
So thanks for joining us. He's Tom.
He's Al.
And hope you'll join us again next week.